What if fear of the truth didn't hold us back?
Instead of having to do the research yourself, we've done it for you. Tune in each week as real moms drop some truth bombs.
Answers start now.
Welcome back to Truth Moms. Today's episode is all about Adderall, holistic wellness, and mold illness. Let's go ahead and drop some truth bombs. But first, let me introduce our incredible guest and our friend, Sheeva Stephens.
Hello.
Sheeva Stephens is a functional medicine coach and brain health specialist with 20 years in the coaching space. She primarily works with women over the age of 30 who want to lose weight, increase energy, and improve their mental health naturally. After 17 years of taking Adderall, Sheeva has been Adderall free through holistic and root cause approach, and shares her story with Adderall and even diving into mold illness, which was the root cause of her ADHD symptoms.
Hello. In the big chair. Oh, man.
So what do you bring to the table that a functional doctor can't really provide?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to say functional doctors are amazing, and I work with them. I've got 2 on my team. But I saw a gap that needed to really be filled. And that was, one, the implementation of it all. It can become very overwhelming for someone to go to a doctor and get 20 supplements. They read the labs and they kind of go home with 20 supplements and they don't know where to start with it. What's working, what's not working. And then depending on the functional medicine doctor that you go to, many of them miss lifestyle and nutrition and really taking the time to dive in deeper with you. They don't have the time. They have an hour at max, right? And it just doesn't become something that people see long-term results with when they have to wait 3 to 6 months to go back and see the doctor again. And so we really dive in. I mean, I spend hours, 4 or 5 or 6 hours, really diving into multiple documents that I get you to fill out.
Wow.
And making sure that we're not missing the root cause. And of course, that takes time, right? And so then we also do weekly calls where it's like, hey, I felt X, Y, and Z. Okay, based on what I know in my experience, this might be what you're feeling. Maybe we need to pull your supplement back on amount or, whatever that looks like, so that's what I feel I really bring to the table. And, I went to doctors for years and felt lost in the process and still wasn't healing because I didn't have that one-on-one support.
Yeah. I almost want to say, like, you're kind of like that, the functional doula. Like, you're that, because you talk about this before. Like, you have a doctor, you have professionals. That's what you're saying. You're like, you obviously need them because you need to pull, whether it's medicines or supplements and stuff like that. You need to talk to them. But a lot of times people get into the doctor's office, and I'm guilty of it too. I get in there and I forget what I'm even gonna ask because I'm like, I almost have like that anxiety of like, okay, I only have this amount of time. What am I gonna ask them? What am I gonna do? And so having a coach is kind of that middle person to be like, all right, let's sit down and talk about everything that you talked about with your doctor. How's your life going? And then let's talk about how that all comes together in one big puzzle piece. Absolutely. And that's kind of nice to do. And I think we talked about before, like, why you're so expensive. And you're like, well, I'm coaching you through this entire process. It's a lot. It's a lot to sit down with someone and say, I'm not going to let you forget one more important thing while you're kind of figuring out what these labs mean, right? Because we even said it with MaxGen. You get this, he's like, I have a 27-page report. And yes, it's in layman's terms. But still, even in layman's terms, I don't know what COMT gene is, right? Like, someone had to tell me that was the warrior gene. Right. I don't know what MTHFR really does. I don't know what D3 deficiency really is or where I can get it, whether it's a supplement or something to eat, or maybe I just need to be out in the damn sun, right? Yeah. And so it's nice to have somebody who can walk that with me.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and more than anything, like, I run labs too, and I really want to make sure that I'm diving into understanding why these things are off. But then also, like, with people who are trying to change lifestyle and like do these nutrition plans, what gets in the way of succeeding is themselves oftentimes. Right. And so I really want to help them find something that fits in their busy schedules and actually works for them and doesn't feel like this is too much to change. This is overwhelming. I don't want to do this.
And it takes more than one visit, right? Like, because you think about doctors, right? You maybe see them once a month or whatever's covered by your insurance or whatever. Like, and even with us, because I've done a few of Sheeva's, we've had a few talks like postpartum and things like that. The very first time you talk to someone, sometimes not that you're intentionally lying, but you almost don't want to tell them like
everything.
Have you only had coffee today?
Yeah.
No. Right. And you go back and you're like, shit, I have only had coffee
Awareness
today.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's the shame of being like, well, no, right. Because so Sheeva can be like, okay, well, let's try not to have coffee. And the next time I see her, she's like, did you have coffee? And I'm like, no. Right. It's, and you have to get out of your ego a little bit. And so the development of trust is another important factor in coaching. And that's something different because with your doctor, I feel like it's almost like a parent-child relationship a little bit, right? Because they have so much more knowledge and they only have so much time with you. And so you're either kind of you're kind of telling like half truths, or they're not even really asking that question. Yeah. So it's nice to have someone else that's like, okay, let's be serious. Yeah. What did you actually eat today? And let's not be, and here's the thing.
No judgment.
No judgment.
No judgment, and no perfection is needed to see results. And I want to clarify that because a lot of people are scared to get started on these processes because they feel like they won't follow through or they can't actually do it or they don't have the time. And I have worked with so many clients who don't do the process perfectly and still see incredible results.
But I think why you're so successful too is that you came from, even though it's not the similar background, but the similar ideal of fitness. Yeah. Right? Because you're only cheating yourself if you're not sitting with the right coaches, doing the work for yourself and being honest with the process, because it's not, this isn't an Amazon Prime type thing, right? It's not going to take 2 days to get the perfect body from working out. It's not going to take 2 days to get to the perfect health by a few supplements and maybe a medication. You have to really dive deep. Yeah.
So what did get you started? Like what really molded you into what you're doing now?
So honestly, my own story. I was 12 years old when I got diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety, and depression. It was right after I started my period. So hormones were fluctuating, which I wish we had known that previously. They diagnosed me with PMDD, and I was all over the place. My mom often jokes and says, you were a perfect angel until your period came, and then we don't know what happened, right? Wow. And so hormones really shifted. My teacher came to my parents, were like, girl can't sit still in class. We got to get her on medication. He was the one that kind of pushed my parents. My parents were actually very crunchy and very against medications, but I actually was pushing them, and because I felt like there was something wrong with me. My teacher was telling me there was something wrong with me. And I couldn't sit still all day, which, as we all know now, like kids should not be sitting in a classroom all day long. Yeah. And so I pushed to get on it. And so they started with Adderall, and I don't think at the time I was on birth control yet, but they started with me with Adderall. And within the first 48 hours, I was feeling erratic, to be quite honest. We had to do a lot of figuring out what my dosage was, when I should be taking it. It took, I would say, a solid 6 months to figure some of that stuff out, where I was going to the hospital for panic attacks. It was bad.
And I don't think people realize this, right? When you talk about they're figuring out your dosage, you're literally a human guinea pig. And that's the thing about drugs crazy. That really sets me, especially because you're a kid, right? They're like, okay, let's see if this is too high or too low or too, and let's watch her like a lab rat. That freaks me out, right? Because your body is literally going through this chemical change.
Oh, yeah.
Every 48 hours until they figure out the right dosage, right? Yeah. That's wild to me.
But on the flip side, I was the most attentive in class. I was the teacher's pet. My grades were going from B's to A's. And I was really hyper-focused on school and success. And so, I also felt more energized and more confident. Yeah. So why wouldn't I want to continue taking that? 100%. I was a kid. I didn't know any better. Right. Yeah. So, we kept doing that. And I don't think at the time we understood the side effects. I don't think my parents even understood, or I understood, that the panic attacks were actually coming from the medication. But I, looking back now, understood where it was coming from on the other side.
So what were some of the side effects that you saw throughout the years that you can now attribute to the medication? Yeah,
so depression and anxiety were two really big ones, which is why I then got on depression and anxiety medication. Hormones getting even more messed up definitely happened. They put me on hormonal birth control, PMDD, right? So around the week before my period, I would get really erratic and would feel off. Anger outburst, physical pain. I remember I was in chronic neck pain, which was inflammation that was happening in my body. Weight fluctuation. So obviously inflammation was constantly all over the place. And, there was this filter between what my brain was thinking and me saying and speaking. And like, I didn't have that filter with that medication because I was so hyped up and like just really felt so anxious and would have, like I said, anger outbursts. And there were so many as I kept going on this medication.
Right. And then you got to alcohol drinking age.
Oh, right. Yeah. Don't get me started on that. That's when it got really bad.
Right.
And so, you knew me in my prime of owning Title Boxing Club, a local gym. And that in that span of time when I was a gym owner, it was a lot of stress, a lot on my back. And at the same time, a lot of my job was marketing the business and being out and socializing. And so my anxiety was so heightened around people, I would drink heavily on the weekends and I would black out. It ruined many relationships for me. I was so in my head all the time too. I say this on a lot of podcasts that I'm on. I tend to be in my head so much that I remember when I got off of it, that I like looked up at the clouds and like the trees and was like, when was the last time you noticed the clouds and trees when you were driving?
Wow.
Because I was so in my head all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't be alone. That was a really big one. Like I was so anxious that I couldn't be alone. I needed to be around people all the time. Now I love my alone time. I need my alone time. And so, there was just a lot of things about me that I thought were just personality traits that I was like, this is just me. I'm screwed up. Like there's something wrong with me, that really were side effects of a medication.
I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
I also had an Adderall. I'll say it now. I didn't think I did. I'll tell you, no, it's fine. It was fine. I had it under control.
Yeah.
I had an Adderall addiction for 10 plus years?
Yeah.
I went on it in my 20s. And the same thing. It's like all the anxiety that you get. And you think that you have to have this pill in order to succeed in life. And you can't live without this pill. And you don't realize that like, that is what's completely ruining your health. You're ruining your body, everything around you. But I don't think that I looked up at the clouds or I looked at the grass. I was just so in my head all the time.
Yeah. Being present was a really big issue. Yeah.
Yes.
All I wanted to do was get things done. And now that I work with women every single day going through the same thing, it's the same story over and over and over and over again. And so now I see the patterns, right? And so when we're doing that, hitting our adrenals the way that is, and our thyroid, and like it's overworking the body, right? You're not supposed to be an Energizer bunny. We're not supposed to, as humans, be that way. And that's what it was doing to my body. And so I try to get off of it, I would say like 4 or 5 different times. And every time I would go to the doctor, I would have major withdrawal. And he was like, no, it's because you need to keep being on the medication like that. You're going to need this for the rest of your life. And so when I heard that, it was again like, there's something wrong with me. So I need to stay on this drug, and that's what needs to happen. And as I started to learn more about functional medicine and like, and I started to like put 2 and 2 together, that like only thing that they were giving me was another medication that was just fixing a symptom that the first medication was causing. I was done with the conventional medicine world. It wasn't helping. And I feel failed by that system. And so I started to do my own deep dive into it. I was like, there's no way this is what life is supposed to be like. And so, I took a big leap of faith and started to taper off my meds. And I want to also mention this, please talk to a doctor before tapering off meds like this. This is not medical advice. I just always want to clarify and specify that. Tapering is very important, not just getting off of it cold turkey. You can really mess with the brain function when doing that. So,
and in the same thing, right? This is something that I'm looking at, obviously completely not related. We're in Tung, Thailand with baby 2. We were with River. And one of the things that I will say, as you're saying, the tapering off and talking to your doctor, right? Maybe get more than one opinion.
Yes.
Right? Not just your doctor. So like even with her, we have 4 different people that are not related to each other that can all kind of validate and say the same thing, because sometimes you're going to have a doctor that does not want you to taper off, right? And I think that's what you found in the beginning. And so you're like, I need to start talking. So when you start asking questions, same thing with our OB, and why I ended up moving into like the midwifery care with the second baby was, you have to find the professionals, medical professionals, that not only can safely help you through this, but that understand your goal as an individual.
Correct. And also, in general, we have to do our own research now, unfortunately. Right. And we have to not take one person's advice. I don't care what area you're looking at when it comes to your health. Like, for example, with the mold stuff, we had to look at multiple different people to figure out that. There's so many different areas where, like, don't ever get one opinion. Always look at multiple.
Right.
And then you have to make the decision on your own of what makes the most sense to you. Right. And what feels good for you.
Right.
For sure.
What would you say to people or moms that are dealing with kids that are being diagnosed with ADHD, like how to approach that with maybe not going the meds route?
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah, right away.
Yeah. So that first of all, I want to say always try the natural alternative first. I'm not saying there's not a place for medication. I'm saying try the natural alternative first, because the outcome of trying the natural alternative first is not withdrawing off a medication where it's absolutely hard and terrible to do. It's really just adding to your life. And so the biggest thing that I would say to parents is look at their diet. Look at environmental toxins, look at, how much exercise and movement are they getting in a day? Also, like this is a hard one, and I don't have children, and I can't say I wouldn't in many shoes have to be a certain way with how I taught my kid, but look at how they're learning. Is the way that they're learning in school fitting the way that they learn? Right. And so, I'm a really big fan of homeschooling, and I'm a really big fan of finding alternative schooling for kids who might have different brains. I have a different brain. I know I do.
And there are so many different types of schooling now. Right? There isn't the traditional
now.
I mean, public school kind of runs the same gamut, and I get that. But there, even in Tennessee, like depending on what area you live in, I know this is a big jump, right? We're talking about a financial change, whether you're moving into an area that can offer these schools, or whether insurance will cover this and you have insurance. I understand that this feels like a privilege in the sense, but if you have kids and you have the ability to make the leap, right, there is Montessori. There are.
I'm looking at a farm school.
There's a farm school. There's outdoor schools, right? You're right. Like not every child learns the same, and that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them inherently. It just means that their school of thought is different, right? And if we're looking at health and wellness as an individual, then we also have to look at learning as an individual as well.
Agreed.
For sure. And I think, and you're talking about the privilege part, and a lot of these things feel like a lot, right? But at the lowest level, there are things you can do that is not for privilege. And I think more than anything, like I said, looking at your environment and making sure that you're really taking out the toxic ingredients. Like you can choose what you're giving your child.
Right.
And I think that's a hard one for a lot of parents too, with picky eaters and all of that. But if you start them from the very young age, what you're giving them is what they like for the most part.
Right. And we've started in our house. I don't make something separate.
Yeah.
That was one of my big things.
Yeah.
My grandmother didn't do that for us. She made maybe 3 or 4 things, but she made them, and everybody, that's what you got. Right.
Correct.
And so, I would challenge that, right. With Sheeva saying, look, for parents who are just starting out, if you're on that path, like try to find that early on. But for parents that have already gone down this path, right, let's just say like lower income, they've gotten used to the lifestyle. What's one thing that they can change dietary wise that you're like makes a big, huge difference?
Blood sugar balance and protein intake. And so you can sneak in protein with kids through sauces, through baked goods, through protein shakes that taste like chocolate milk. Like there are ways to add that stuff in to get their nutritional value up,
right?
Because they could, that could be a really huge one. So that's like at the base where I would say making sure they're eating enough protein in 3 meals is really beneficial for anyone who is struggling with some of these mental health issues.
Protein's that sneaky little fun thing that people never really thought about, right? Because we thought of protein as like being a bodybuilder, and now we're like, wait a minute, it is a building block for
literally.
health and wellness. No,
like with all aspects, it does pretty much everything in our body. Like it does so much.
Right.
All right, real quick, if you're loving this chat, let's make it official. Hit follow, leave a quick review, and take a screenshot to share on your Instagram story. Tag us at Truth Moms Pod so we can send you some love. All right, back to it. What is your view on the importance of root cause through programs like yours and labs?
Yeah, so why I feel, first of all, root cause medicine. So we're trying to figure out that it's not always one thing, first of all. Root cause, if I'm like, it's only this thing. No, our body works as a whole, right? Yeah. So if I could talk about root cause in general, what I think the biggest issue is that conventional medicine is looking at one system. Well, all systems work together. So if I have a gut dysfunction of some sort, or bacteria or infection or parasite, then that's going to affect my hormones, right? Or if I have a toxin overload, that's going to affect my liver. And so these all work together. And so we have to start looking at the body as a whole when it comes to healing. And that takes a lot of work to figure out that root cause thing and what steps that takes to get and fix the root cause. So while I might be working on, a gut imbalance, I might also be working on nutrition and other things as well, or thyroid function at the exact same time. And one protocol can actually fix a lot of different things. So when I say root cause, it might not be one specific thing, or it could, right? And why I think it's so beneficial is because of that. I think that when we work on one system only, we're not looking at the root cause or the whole picture.
Well, I think too, root cause can be a convoluted word. I mean, even in your case, right? We've talked about this with you. It's like you think you're looking for that aha moment. Like, oh, it is totally mold. Oh, it is totally this ADHD medication. Oh, it's got to be the fact that, I'm using Tide Pods in my house for my laundry. And it's not necessarily one thing. And right. So root causes is like, what's your foundation look like? And what in the foundation can change, right? Because even when you, like you're saying, like you were the science project for yourself. You're like, hey, look, I got off the medication. Then you even went through breast health illness with
got my breast implants taken out.
Right. And then even that wasn't 100%, right? And then you're like, okay, you went through, then you were like, wait, I have an autoimmunity. And so that, I mean, it's going to tell you that your body doesn't just have, not one thing is changing, right? I just figured out, so we lived originally from Philly, and I'll never forget that a family I dated, but his family lived in Fishtown, Philadelphia. And one of the things about Fishtown was that there was a lot of planes going overhead, and there was a coincidence. A coincidence? No. What's the word I'm looking for? Begins with a C. Anyway, there was a kind of a root cause approach of trying to figure out why there was so much brain cancer in this particular place in Fishtown. And what they figured out was they think that it was in relation and correlation, that was the word, to the low flying planes in the area. So now I'm looking at that, and we live in a place in Nashville that now that Nashville's building in the last 5-10 years has been much more on the plane route, right? And so I'm looking overhead going, brain cancer, right? And it took PJ to take it out of me to be like, that's not 100% the reason, right? There are other things in your house that you can control, detoxing otherwise, and lifestyle. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because this plane's flying overhead, that's what it's going to be. And that's what I think about when I think of you, is it's not just one thing that you're like, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. And then also when it comes to labs on a root cause medicine standpoint, the way that conventional medicine is looking at labs is very different than the way I'm looking at labs. And I look at optimal ranges, not standard ranges. And standard ranges is sick America. We don't want to be sick America. We want to
those ranges are like huge in some of those functions, right? Like, I think it's D3 and B12. It's like super low and super high. The numbers are so vague. And you're like, oh, you're okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so I think that also understanding that when you go to a doctor, because this is what I hear all the time, well, my doctor said my labs are normal. Well, that does not mean that if you're not feeling well, your labs are not normal.
Right.
They're not. And then also on that standpoint, a lot of people are like, well, X, Y, and Z is off. Well, I'm looking at your symptom burden analysis. I'm looking at your lifestyle. I'm looking at your nutrition. And I can actually see, like, you might have a sluggish liver, but it doesn't show up on your labs yet. It takes years to also have issues show up on your labs in certain areas, right? And so I think that is what it is. It's that just like big picture holistic approach that is being missed in sick America, right? Like our healthcare is not set up
to your point. You're also fighting someone who's been in allopathic medicine for so long. So when they're saying to you, like, the doctor said my lab is fine, they're also saying my labs are fine, right?
They believe it. Yeah, the mindset shifts that people have to make. I mean, there's some incredible things coming out right now where like people have access to more labs to run on a functional medicine standpoint, even, right? And so they'll get these labs done as well, and then they're left with like this information too. And they're wanting to get a diagnosis, right? A lot of people are like, well, diagnose me with this and that's going to make me feel better.
Right. Because then I'm going to know what it is. And
I can figure it out. Like, because that's what we've been wired to say, I need this diagnosis and this is what's going on. And sometimes it's just your lifestyle and your nutrition that needs to be changed. You know, like it's not this just like deadly thing. And so helping people understand like what you put in your body every day and what is in your environment can quite literally take someone from bedridden to absolutely normal with zero diagnosis that they've been able to get from a doctor just because they have changed those things. I've seen it with many clients. And it's pretty life-changing. So helping people understand, like, you know, they hear it all the time. Okay, nutrition. Yeah. But like it can actually heal you in such a level where you might not even have a diagnosis of any sort.
I don't understand why that's such like a crazy thing to think about. We're literally putting it into our bodies. It's going through so many organs through our body. Like there's
on our skin, like all of it.
Right, if you think about it, it's just that the problem is it's hard work.
It is hard work.
Wants to change what they're already eating. They like.
Well, no one
eat.
wants to be told that they're doing it wrong. Can you imagine me going, hey, that, you know, obviously we're a little bit more crunchy than we used to be, right? But even you're like protein, I'm like, yeah, but are you getting grass-fed protein?
Yeah,
right. You know, like we're, you know, because we've gone down the road. Where we're like, okay, fitness wise, because fitness and wellness, you're kind of already stationed in that place, right? We went to the Costco's and got like, you know, the crazy meats, and we're like, oh, you know, we're loading up on meat and we're meal prepping and we're doing all these things. And now I'm like, well, was that chicken pasture raised?
Yep.
You know, that's a whole different. So you're asking someone from 0 from 100. That's not easy.
Well,
you know?
but you have to meet them where they're at.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I have clients right now who are fast food eaters. I'm not talking about grass-fed meats for them right now. You think I'm even bringing up that subject yet?
Right.
No, I'm saying, hey, can you do me a favor and eat 3 real meals a day? Let's start there. These other things are important, but I don't even want you to focus on those. I just want you eating 3 real meals a day that's not fast food, right?
You got it.
So, you know, we have to meet them where they're at. And so little by little, again, it definitely will get there, right? Mm-hmm. But when they're ready to hear the conversation, because that mindset, if I tell someone to stop drinking coffee and they're not ready for that, they're not going to do it.
I actually heard that in my chiropractor's yesterday. I took the baby to the chiropractor and they were seeing a student, or they do muscle testing as well there. And there's a lady that walked out and she goes, oh, I saw that you're also selling low tox coffee in the office, right? There's some like, you know, no mold coffee or whatever. She's like, can I get that now? And she's like, let's get you to a different place first. Yes. But that mindset of like, I need this coffee.
Yeah.
You know, because you're right. Like if you tell someone you cannot have your morning coffee, you're basically shifting their entire world.
Yeah. But if I get them having increase in energy and they feel better, increased energy, like, all right, let's try that no coffee.
Right.
So I want them to believe it, but something to touch on the fact that you're like, you know, it's hard for people to hear they're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the basis of my job, is to pick at everything that you're doing and tell you what you're doing wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I want also people to shift their mindsets where like when you're getting that help, you're really, it's a little humbling. It's a little humbling to be like, hey, this is what you're doing incorrectly. But it is absolutely every single person's doing it. Even me. There are things in my life that I don't do perfectly that I could probably improve, that a doctor would say that I need to improve. So like, take that ego and take it out, because that's what is going to allow you to make change.
But I would also say too, is that as you're hearing this, if you become a client of Sheeva's, right? Like I've been friends with Sheeva for 10 years and she will tell you like it is, but it's not meant to be shameful. And I think that's the problem, is that when someone's telling you, hey, you're doing this, that is the ego. You're like, I'm ashamed. Someone's showing me the mirror and I don't like it. That's not really what's happening. We're saying, hey, if you can take out this one thing that may not be great for you, I'm sure you'll see a difference. And that's, it might be hard to hear, but it's not, no one's telling you you're a bad person, you're a bad parent, you're a terrible human, right? We're saying some of these things are not good for you. And I challenge you to find one difference in the day, that whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And I want to hit what feels good for you.
Right.
And like I said, if my client's like, I'm only ready for this week, all right, we'll take it slow. But no, your results are going to come by around this time instead. So expectations are important, and then understanding like, you know, what you're ready for. And a lot of people don't even know that. They might be like, yeah, I'll do all these things. And the next week they come to me like, I couldn't do any of that stuff. And we're like, that's okay. Let's talk through it and talk through why. Where did your mind get stuck? Right. You know, like we're really diving in deep on this stuff. And that's exactly what I also do differently, is I want to dive in deep where the mindset stuff is stuck. Where do we need to kind of shift the thinking?
That brings me to a pop question that I wanted to ask you that I didn't prepare you for. I have two type A people in between me, and I was like, oh, I'm going to mess everything up today. Speaking of mindsets, what's one health trend right now that you're like, I need you to get out of this mindset for your clients, or just in general, you're like, this is on TikTok everywhere, and I wish this would stop.
Or
just slow down and look at something else.
I would say like this supplement's going to fix you. Off the top of my head. There's like probably 10 other things that I'll think of in the next 30 minutes. But I hate the mindset of like someone sees a supplement and they're like, I'm going to take this and it's going to heal. Guys,
like the hair supplements.
Oh gosh, I can't stand. Okay, well there you go. You pulled one out for me.
We just went through this together. So
Nutrafol, I hate Nutrafol.
My doctor literally, she gave me some that she couldn't use.
Okay, I was an influencer and I didn't.
Sorry if you're promoting them, but
no.
I hate Nutrafol because it has actually wrecked my clients' hormones drastically.
Okay, why?
Shiva, I'm literally
drastically.
Going through this. My estrogen is up to 500.
I'm so
but you only took a half a bottle.
I know.
No, I had a client who did it for 2 weeks and it wrecked her. 2 weeks and it wrecked her
really low
hormones.
before.
Yeah. No, I had a client come to me with only 2 weeks on Nutrafol. Guys, there is if your hair is falling out, if your hair is falling out, again, a supplement's not going to fix it. Shampoo's not going to fix it. If you already have your systems are okay, you're doing okay there, and you want an added source of nutrients.
I'm never going to be influencing ever again. That's it. We're not making any money. Every time I think I have something good, I'm like, damn it.
No,
well, that's how it is.
It needs to be more customized.
Yeah,
I agree.
And that's where
palmetto.
That's what it comes down to. It's not that the ingredients are bad. It's that it needs to be more customized to the person. And that's where the whole topic of like, take this supplement and this will fix you. Like, for example, colostrums, like all over the place. I love colostrum, but guess what? For me, when I take colostrum, I have major mast cell symptoms. I get it's a high histamine thing for me.
Okay.
I also have clients that get really constipated on colostrum. They're not ready for it yet. And so you end up wasting all this money grabbing things that you might see. And that's why I'm really particular about supplements that I promote on social now.
What's the big one right now? Seaweed? Or not seaweed, sea moss?
Sea moss for sure is one that can actually cause people to have symptoms as well. And if I was to choose a supplement for you to take, it's not sea moss, right? Like,
but also I would say too, like, it's not, okay, let's just say you go down the route, you get all the labs done, and we do suggest a supplement. Yeah. Not all supplements are created equal.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started
That's
on
a
that.
whole other thing because, for a long time, I'm like, hey, there's a few supplements that I take at our office, magnesium being one of them because your body gets depleted after pregnancy, and a few other things. A lot of people are deficient in magnesium. But there's 7 different types of magnesium to take, and you don't know which one that you particularly need until you right?
On this subject, I actually had a client who was having chronic diarrhea and was having major gut issues because of the type of magnesium that she was taking.
Interesting.
And all of her gut issues went away once we changed the type of magnesium she was having.
The same thing happened with me.
So it's like, please stop seeing that influencer, including me, if I promote something on social media and it doesn't feel like something that aligns for you.
Right.
Take it as education and take it to the person you are working with to get further knowledge on it, right? It's education. Yeah. That is what we're putting out there. We're talking to masses. We're not talking to just you.
Yeah. My sister's one, she texted me the other day and was like, hey, I need something for my hair. Do you think I should take biotin? And I was like, I think that there's a million other things you need to do before you go and buy biotin. And also outside of that, Amazon's not the place to buy your supplements, y'all. Nope. I hate to tell you. Yep. And I learned that the hard way. Yeah. Even if you're ordering from the company that you think you're ordering from, it's at a warehouse, you never know. Like, even like the best magnesium on the planet that I've been taking, if I order from Amazon, sometimes I don't get, right? Because I'm like, I need it at the door tomorrow. Yeah. And my doctor's office is closed. If you don't order direct, you never know exactly what you're getting. And that's been our hard learning lesson. So that's a whole different ball game to go down. But saying that is, you see an influencer online, I truly mean, because I've done this, I mean well. I want everybody to have like the best life, right? And also I'm a learning human, I'm whatever. So when I'm looking at Nutrafol, I'm like, oh great, it helped my hair, right?
Not saying it didn't help you.
But I was postpartum.
Yeah. Not saying it wouldn't help you.
But what she was saying is, when you see that, when you hear that, take that, and instead of going straight and buying, unfortunately, don't click the link for me. So I have... so I can have a little bit. You don't have to buy anything. Just click the link.
This is little baby. She needs daycare.
Yeah. This is what you're helping me with. So, just a little bit of engagement, maybe a DM here or there, right?
100%.
Right, hair, comment hair for more. But take it to your doctor or take it to your health professional or take it to your health coach and say, hey, you know what? I saw this online. What do you think of this? And have a conversation about it, not necessarily go right to it, right?
Yeah.
Because, and my family, myself has been, I see something online. I'm like, that is the golden ticket to better whatever.
Correct.
And I take it without knowing what my body particularly needs or what I'm deficient in.
Yeah.
And again, I want to clarify. I hate it because it's not customized to the person. I'm not saying it hasn't helped people because it has. It obviously has, or it wouldn't be where it's at.
You're just
but they
saying,
also have a lot of marketing dollars.
You're saying
So
if you try it and you feel like something's off, probably stop taking it.
well,
Or
stop
go to
going
your-
after the quick fix.
Right.
Okay. Stop going after the quick fix because that's not going to fix you.
Because that's not different than taking the medication at the
It's
doctor.
no
Right.
different
It's
than
no-
taking
yeah.
the medication at the doctor. If you're saying I'm on these supplements and this is going to fix me, you're no different than conventional medicine. No different.
Right.
Although you don't have as many side effects going on a supplement as you would a medication, it's no different.
Saying that, I live off beef organs and I will do that forever. But that's not for you. And hey, here's the link at the bottom to click.
Beef organs I'm okay with.
Yeah. See, but again, it's the type. Talk to your doctor, right?
Yeah.
But and here's the thing: we're not saying don't take supplements. Sometimes you need something, but what I'm learning in this health world is that there's very little that you can't get from the earth and the food that you're eating,
Right.
That and the exercise, right? And if your entire body lifestyle changes, you may see that medicine cabinet start to look a little bit more empty.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the next? Now we can go back. We can go back on track. Now that I took us off, veered off.
I thought you had another question.
I do, but I'm not. It's not. We haven't gotten there yet. I need to find the right place to add it in. If you know what I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
I got a little pop quiz. Trying to catch you off guard. You know me.
The one thing I told you not to do.
That's why I did it.
Okay, what is autoimmunity and why has it become so common?
Yeah, so autoimmunity is basically where your body's attacking itself ultimately, and it can show up in ways with your skin, your thyroid, your gut, many different ways. And it's causing, instead of actually attacking the infection or whatever's coming into the body, it's causing inflammation instead in the body.
Yeah.
And across the board, like with autoimmunity, I'm seeing a few different factors with my clients. And over the last 8 years, I would say our world's not the same as it was before. What we're eating, our environment, all of that has changed. So I think that's drastically a big part of it. Obviously, this all starts from genetics, right?
Yeah.
We have a genetic predisposition of being a certain way. And then, the things we put in our body, on our body, all of that can definitely affect it. Stress can affect it, a lot of things like that. But, medications, I would say there's a really big link with Adderall and thyroid dysfunction.
Wow.
I don't have specific studies for you because they need to be doing more of those studies, but I see that in almost every single one of my clients getting off of
Do you see
Adderall.
it?
Well, but also it's a longitudinal study, right? Like anything that's going to come out. So if you think about it, Adderall has only been a bit as big as it was for how many years? So we're going to start seeing those pretty soon.
Correct. As well as even on the fine print of the Adderall label, you're going to see if you have thyroid dysfunction, we recommend you not take this medication.
Okay. So my brother actually has Graves' disease and he's an Adderall addict. I think he's tried to get off. I'm not sure if he's on it right
Graves'
now.
disease specifically
Yes.
should not be taking Adderall.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's actually, it's hyperthyroid because obviously it increases stress and anxiety.
Right, right.
Messes with the nervous system even more. But yeah, it's very linked. And then things like Crohn's and some those gut autoimmunities are really being seen with more like mold toxicity. I'm saying all autoimmune disease definitely do. I'm seeing a huge correlation between Hashimoto's and mold illness, SIRS as well, so chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So top of funnel, like biggest things, I would say what you're again putting inside your body and what you're putting on your body and in your environment. Those are all why I feel autoimmunity has increased over over the last 10 plus years.
And so my chiropractor, actually, I keep referring to her, my chiropractor in Nashville actually said something that was very interesting that makes me think of what you're saying when you talk about top of funnel, is she explained that a lot of like these kind of autoimmunities, or even down with the MTHFR mutations, we're seeing a lot of this happening because if you think about it, the baby boomers and Gen X were really like the first they were the first generation to get introduced to these toxins, right? So if you think about vaccine scheduling, the Industrial Revolution, you think about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that was all really Gen X, right? That happened. So they started having kids. And then those kids, which is us, which is the millennial generation, came through, and we're part. We take on whatever they ingested. Like cigarettes.
Yep.
And we were like, oh hey, let's add in the technological revolution. Yeah. And we're like, let's have screen time, and let's have when we talk about schooling, right? Let's have these what's it called? Standardized testing. Let's have kids, have incredible stress. And by the way, when they have incredible stress and they can't handle it, let's throw ADHD at them. Let's put them on medications to suppress emotions or whatever. Because I think our generation was a big generation when it came to eating disorders. Right, that was huge. Yeah. So if you weren't having behavioral issues, you were having eating disorders.
Yeah.
So that generation comes through, and now our generation's having kids, and you have Gen Z, and you have Gen A, or what is it?
Gen A and Gen B. I think she's B now.
B, right?
Yeah.
And so they are basically the bottom of the funnel, taking on what all those things happened, right? Yeah. So all of the artificial food dyes, all of the scheduling, whether from the medications down to the learning environment. You talk about planes and technology and all of those things that we're now having studies come out that are like, right, too much screen time, we can now accumulate to certain disorders.
Yeah.
So you have to think about where you come from, of all of the things that accumulate to now create you in your system. And that's kind of like insane to me, because you're like, hey, what's the root cause? Why do I have this? Why has autoimmunity become a thing? Well, it really has been building, because we have been going down this rabbit 100%. Hole of doing whatever we wanted, eating whatever we wanted, letting the food industry take over and big pharma take over. Yeah. That's kind of I don't know.
Pop off.
Yeah.
Popped off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's not one thing, it's over time is how this happens. And so, I believe that everything I've done, from the vaccines that I got, which I definitely believe had a huge toll on my body. Now that I know my genetic predispositions and those things, I would have never, ever gotten vaccines in the first place if I had known my genetic predisposition. And that might be something that could mess with me. So as a kid, definitely got those. And then, you throw in the breast implants and the medication that I was taking for 17 years, and the stress and the alcohol and the foods I was eating. I mean,
and the marijuana.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All of it.
I lived on an island, guys. I had some fun. But you're right. We throw all these toxins, all these things at ourselves, and then we go, why do I feel like shit?
Yeah, so our bucket, I like to talk about the toxin bucket load, and how, like, over time it keeps building and building and building and building, and then you start to overflow, and that's when your body's like, I'm done, peace out. Right. And so you're like, well, I did this in my 20s, why can't I do it now? Well, your body's changed too. And so, where we're also seeing autoimmunity, to talk about that a little bit more, is we're seeing that more in, post-pregnancy. That can happen, for a period of time. We're seeing that in perimenopause women, which is why I work with women, pretty much 35 and up. In your 30s and 40s, you're declining on progesterone and estrogen, and that can definitely affect the immune system. You're seeing this obviously with environmental toxins and those overloads as well. So that it's over time. Yeah. And what we did in our 20s no longer works in our 30s and 40s.
That's what drives me nuts when people say things like, well, I did it, nothing ever. Oh man, 444 is getting me. Sorry, numbers. When angel numbers, guys. When people say, well, I did this for so long and I've been fine, and you're like, yeah, but are you? right? So if you
let me pull this apart for you really quickly. And that, again, that goes back to the awareness piece. A lot of people aren't aware of it. I wasn't aware for 17 years that the stuff that I was dealing with was something bigger until it was like, okay, I've got to figure this out.
Right.
I
You just
can't
thought it
keep
was a bad
going.
boyfriend or a terrible job.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You're like,
Yeah.
it can't be inside of me. And, you know,
Yeah.
when everyone's like telling you to look within, you're like, no, my chakra is fine. Maybe your chakra is fine, but your vitamin A deficiency is not.
Yeah,
You know?
100%.
Right.
Speaking of the daily stuff, I found where I'm going to implant my next
I
one.
was wondering where this is going to come
So
in.
what's the deal with poop?
Okay. All right.
Waiting for it to
We
come.
talk.
We talk about poop a lot.
I know we
I'm
do
all
talk about poop a
yeah.
lot. That's why I was like, I got to talk to my pooping partner about pooping.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about, you know, the toxin overload and where that comes from, a lot
Yeah.
of it comes down to, are you freaking constipated? Can you poop
Gosh.
efficiently?
The-
Are you pooping once a day?
The amount of women that come to me constipated, if I could look at top 5 things I'm trying to work on in the beginning with my clients, it's going to be if they're sleeping enough, if they're pooping every single day, and, you know, if they're, you know, the food that they're eating, if they're eating regularly 3 meals a day, like those are like top 3 priorities.
Because if you think when we were in our 20s, speaking of like, hey, when you were in your 20s, it was like a badge of honor to say, I haven't slept in 3 days
yeah.
and I haven't
yeah.
pooped in a week.
Yep.
You know, because you're
Yep.
like, I don't have to go to the bathroom. My boyfriend
Yeah.
doesn't have to know. Girls don't poop.
Yep, yep.
Right. And now I'm like, no, man, like I'm shutting the door. Leave me alone for 10 minutes. I got to go. Right.
Yeah, it is not normal not to poop every
Yeah.
single day, at least once a day. And also, a lot of people are like, well, I poop once a day. I'm like, okay, are you drinking copious amounts of coffee? And that's the reason why you're pooping once a day?
Right.
So, like, I want you to take out your coffee really quickly and then tell me if you're pooping once a day, right?
That's a really good point.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one that people are like, oh, yeah, no, I go once a day. Also, are you completely emptying? Do you feel like you have more that needs to come out? And a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, no, actually, I don't feel like I'm emptying, you know? You know, a lot of people are like, well, I'm bloated and I'm not as hungry. And I'm like, well, probably because you're backed up and you need to get that poop out of you, you know?
Right. Yeah. Right.
So that's a big topic. That's a conversation I have with every single client. And
Yeah.
we actually track, like, what does your poop look like? Is it, you know, does it look like a snake? Is it, you know, broken up pieces? Is it, you know, diarrhea? Like, what is it? Like, we really go deep into.
Yeah, and it's not just down to because there's a guy on TikTok that went viral and was like, oh, has to do with water, and you're like, it's not just hydration.
No.
Yeah.
There's
No.
so much more about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, glad I got the poop question out of the way. Now we can move on again.
Okay. So you have experience with mold toxicity. You have like
Yeah.
a mold illness. You want
do.
to talk a little bit more about that? And
Yeah, it took me a really long time to find this specific diagnosis, and it has been a game changer in how I feel. I have an HLA gene mutation, which basically it's not just mold. It's I don't have the ability to detoxify a lot of different biotoxins. And so, you know, for me, for example, if I was in a room with mold and you were in a room with mold and you didn't have an HLA gene mutation, you might be able to detoxify that in a few days. It takes me 311 days to detoxify roundabout that amount of days for me to actually detoxify mold. So if I continue to live in an environment with mold, that backs me up. And my toxin load continues to increase.
And how did you find the mutation? Like, was that on
Yeah.
a lab? Or,
Yeah,
And
blood work.
how long did that take you to get down to that? Like,
Gosh, I mean, I didn't get down to this diagnosis till maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And I do want to bring this up because I think this is something that a lot of people are struggling with, is that COVID really is where things it turned things on that were off. Because reminder that we have many dormant things in the body, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, whenever COVID hit, we're seeing a lot more of that autoimmunity. We're seeing a lot more of the chronic illness come into play because it's really triggered the immune system. It's really messed with mitochondrial dysfunction and our ability to produce, you know, energy in the body at a cellular level, right? It's really messing with our ability to detoxify. So detox pathways were definitely messed up as well. So we're seeing a lot of that happen. And that's where things really shifted for me.
Right.
I've had health issues since I was 12, right? Like I've always had them. 17 years was covered up by Adderall. So a lot of my symptoms were covered up by this medication that I didn't know. I could probably have been hit with multiple different times in my life where I was probably hit with mold and didn't realize maybe that might be causing some of my inflammation.
Wow.
And so it got bad after COVID, and I really started to dig deeper into root cause. And even the first 2 years of understanding and knowing mold, I didn't believe it. until we purchased a home. And
a home that was built after 1960.
3 years old. 3 years old, got lied to by the owners of the home.
That's what's so insane to me is that everyone thinks that it's because these are these old homes or whatever. It's like, no, you guys have to understand that homes are not being built. One, even if it is before 1960 and it doesn't have asbestos and whatever, homes that are built, I would even say post-COVID era, are just shit. Yeah. Right? Like they are not built with quality materials. They are built to go up and go up quick.
Yeah.
And when things do that, you tend, speaking of TikTok again, there's a guy that I love following. I cannot remember his name for the life of me. We'll tag him. But he basically, he's an inspector. And he goes around and his key line is like, that ain't right. Right? Mm-hmm. And these are homes that, by the way, he's inspecting that are million and multi-million-dollar homes. So you would expect them to be built with the quality materials. You expect them to be built great. And they're just going up so fast and so furious that a lot of things get left behind. Well, when you leave windows open or when you leave little cracks in the foundation, things will start to seep in, and mold does not take long to grow. So this is a 3-year-old home.
Yeah. Right. So I want to bring up 2 things about homes while we're on this home subject as I tell my story. One is the brand new build, like you stated, a lot of the wood sits outside.
That's what
in the
rain.
rain.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's the biggest one. Yeah. So like if you're building a home with someone right now, I need you to be watching them like a hawk and make sure that they are covering up the wood that is being put up in your home, because then you're putting up the walls and then we don't know where the mold is, right? Or it could be all over your home.
What about like the framing once they have it all framed out and then it rains?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to go around and about that. I am not the expert there, I will be honest. Okay. But that's something to talk to your builder about, and also talking to an environmentalist of some sort and having someone on your team to actually walk you through this process with them is really important. And then another thing that happens a lot is that you might have had a leak in your home. It's bound to happen at some point in time. Right. And you're just getting people that are not doing it correctly, because this industry is so it varies with opinions.
I was going to say, do you feel like now that you've gone down this road, as we're talking about your mold toxicity issues, do you feel like that you come across a lot of people professionally and personally that just are thinking like you're crazy?
Yes.
And so they just don't want to do the work because they're like, you're a little nuts. Yes, it's correct. Fine. I've been doing this 1,000 years building homes and I've never seen this. So this isn't a thing.
I went through 5 remediators before we got to the remediator that we worked with. And even that remediator fought me on a lot of things. So it's really tough you have to find the best of the best to be doing this. And you don't want to waste your money, because you can put $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 into your home to remediate, and then it's done incorrectly and you have to do it all over again. And so that's just some tips there that I would love to give. So brand new home, testing is also done incorrectly. Like air quality tests come back, negative all the time, and they're not done correctly. And so doing the testing properly in the first place is also really important. So I got to learn the hard way through a lot of things. And it's really why I'm doing all of what I'm doing, is because I think I've learned the hard way in every aspect of my health journey. Yeah. And I want to make it easier for other people.
You think that, the flex in life is buying like Louis Vuitton bags and Louis Vuitton shoes. Like, you want to talk to this girl about how much she spent in remediation. I listen to, I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. In order to be, I wouldn't even say crunchy, in order to just be holistic and like want a healthy lifestyle, like the things that you spend to make sure that you get that, right? Because what's the test that you do? It's like $800 every time you do it.
Yeah, so it's $565, and it's a dust test. And so right now, we're in the process of looking to rent a place while we start to build or buy again. And we have to do that test on every single home that we go into, and it's a DNA test. So that's what I prefer to do versus an air sample test. But I rather not be down this road again. Like, I really want to make sure that we are doing that. And then once we're in the house, we really want to make sure we have things in place to where like leaks don't happen, and that we know what's going on. We're looking at the humidity levels in our home. We're making sure that we're checking, if there's any water leaks, or there's like, pads you can put underneath your sinks that can, stop things from becoming a huge problem, right? And like sensors that point out if there's like a leak behind your washer and dryer, like you can go in depth, but when you have an HLA gene mutation like I do, like there's no messing around after what I've been through for the past.
Yeah, most people are just going in and being like, do I have like a master closet and a really cool kitchen?
Yeah.
And you're like, would you have any leaks currently? And I need to take this test. And what's underneath, right? Is it a slab or is it a encapsulated,
That's another one that's a really important point that I think people need to understand. If you don't have a fully encapsulated crawl space with a dehumidifier, you most likely have mold in your home. Again, what affects me is going to be different than what it might affect you, but it's still affecting you long term.
Right. So, and where you live, right? Because Tennessee is one of the worst.
Tennessee is one of the worst for sure.
And what are some areas that obviously because you came back and forth in California, right? What are some of the areas?
California can be pretty bad too. Drier climates, definitely like Arizona's one, but this can happen anywhere. Like it really can. It's just, you have to stay in a place of not being into fear and scarcity mindset, and you have to stay in a place of education and understanding.
Right.
And
also standard, right?
Yes.
Like you're like, this is what I won't deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of like, I've had to fight a lot of people in conversations.
But outside of people, can you imagine finding the most perfect home and you're like, can't do it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You're like, yes, I've done mine.
Yes, that has been the last year of my life. So understanding and finding this diagnosis has better set me up to have a lot of success. We talked about the hair loss earlier. I lost chunks and chunks and chunks of hair. I always have had hair that's like down to my butt, thick. People would always ask me if I had extensions, and I lost it to the point where like I was having to put clip-ins in my hair because I was so embarrassed by the level of it. I left the house the previous rental that we were in, and got my iron levels where they need to be at and fixed progesterone levels, all those things. But really honestly, like within weeks of leaving this environment, my symptoms started to go away. And so it was such a mind-blowing experience for me to be like, all right, I'm taking this seriously now. Like, I had people while we were living in the rental that we were in before we bought the house that were like, Sheeva, your crawl space is not encapsulated. Like X, Y, and Z is wrong with this house. Like you're probably still dealing with symptoms because of this. And I was like, I'm not dealing with it. We brought porous furniture from a previous place that we had mold. That I was like, I'm not getting rid of all this stuff. But like this last time, I was done. Like I'm going to do it right this time.
I was going to say that's something I've learned. So you're not the only friend in my circle now that I feel, because again, speaking of autoimmunity, one of the things I'm starting to see is people are paying attention to mold because of autoimmunities or because of gene mutations and things that we're paying attention to and the healthy lifestyle. When you take away, a few of the other bad things, some of those symptoms start to creep up and you're like, ooh, this is coming from somewhere else. Hair loss being one of them, right? So a lot of people are figuring out mold disease, or whatever forms of it, SIRS, Hashimoto, or things like that what have you, be coming from losing hair. That's the first sign. They're like, something's wrong. I'm losing hair in globs. But I literally have friends that are in the influencer world and friends that are in my world here in Nashville that it's popping up more and more, this mold issue, right? I have a friend that's a farmer online that literally is living outside of her most perfect, beautiful built home in a tent because she cannot find any place because basically her house was killing her for a whole year, right? I think somebody that we know just got diagnosed or just found out, right? Like literally there's a picture of her in the hospital with IVs because it was making her so sick. Her liver levels were taking a hit.
Yeah, I haven't shared this publicly very much, but I lived in a tent as well for a while when we first got out of that. House. And I had to do that. There's such a big nervous system piece here and the trauma around like your environment hurting you. Like it's such a scary process and you lose trust and faith in your environment. Like where do you feel safe? And so part of that, there's a big part of it there. My immune system and my nervous system have calmed down drastically since then. But yeah, it was bad. And it's not just me dealing with it, my brother's dealing with it too. Like genetically, there's something that's off, And so yeah, it's, knowledge is power. And, I really want to speak to the person who's like, I am racking my brain. What is wrong with me? This is so, there's even clients who have gone to functional doctors that I work with right now that have gotten the mold diagnosis, but no one's change their environment.
Yeah.
They've not looked at the environment. They're treating mold, but why aren't you fixing the actual environment you're in?
There's another friend online that I follow that was redoing their kitchen, and they opened up this little space where the cabinets were, and it was like black mold everywhere. And this particular person didn't happen to, they were just basically like, oh, now I know why my allergies are so bad, right?
Yeah.
So it could be something as little as like a sniffle, or it could be something as big as literally shutting down your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bedridden,
right.
on oxygen.
Because I remember people being like brain fog. We're like, oh, what's brain fog? Like you just have a few bad days, and you're like, no, man, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like where you literally cannot think, function, or otherwise, and it's because of some. Look, at the end of the day, if you have any black mold, even if you don't have any gene mutations, it's not freaking good for you.
And it's not mildew, guys. Like if I hear one more person be like, oh, that's just mildew. Guys, mildew is mold.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. And don't kill it with bleach, because bleach is going to make it worse. That's another thing.
Okay, so no one told me this.
Yeah, no more bleach. We're not doing bleach, guys. Like that's it. It will actually make the situation worse. So there's just a lot of bad information out there. And, like if you're going to learn anything from the chronic illness world, like even if you are not chronically sick, like pay attention to how they're doing things, because that is the right way, because they are the canary in the coal mine. Like I can walk into a home in 2 hours and tell you if there's something wrong with your home. Like straight up.
Actually, I had my nesting party. I literally, I know I have 4 dogs too. I was so nervous because I was like, because not nervous as in like, oh, I don't want you to I don't want you to get sick. Not like, oh, she was coming over, But I literally, she left. It was a 3-hour party, and I was like, hey, did you have any reactions in my home? Just so I know, because we're getting ready to sell. We want a new home, and the last thing I want to do is leave it worse than when I came. And I know that there's nothing you can do about certain things, like maybe a pipe breaks, or maybe there's a leak or whatever. But you definitely want to be aware of your environment. Right. And I was like, also, I have 2 small babies in my home.
Right.
And I don't want them to then go to another place and have a huge reaction because they've been exposed to something for over a prolonged period of time. Because that's another thing. You could be totally good if you just like hop in and hop out of it. And then you live in an environment at home, or, you work at a place and you're there for a year and you're exposing yourself over and over and over again, and you're not detoxifying correctly. That also puts you at a predisposition to have an infection or a reaction to it later on.
Yeah, so that's a great point to bring up. My husband, for example, he does not have an HLRG mutation. Kid does not react to like anything. He's also like the calmest person on the face of the planet.
He's like a Buddha.
Yeah, he really truly is. It's kind of mind blowing. And he started to get sensitivities because of our exposures, and is also just more aware of like, okay, wait, now I do see a difference. I do feel more brain foggy when I'm around our stuff that we're trying to clean, and like he's noticing a difference. Like we'll go into places that we've been testing, and he's like, no, I felt a little off in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good, he's starting to realize that, right? But that took us going through all of this for him to realize like, oh wait, I'm getting sensitive to this stuff because we've been in this environment so many times.
Right. Outside of mold, like I was just telling her, so we've done no scents in our home. It's a big thing.
Yes.
Like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm sent like no Tide Pods, no candle, Yankee Candle kind of thing, right? And we haven't done it for over 2.5 years. Outside of children, I just couldn't take it. And someone brought a candle in as a gift, and I immediately had a headache. And that's what we're telling you, is that as soon as you start taking these things away, it's kind of like when we were kids, the dieting thing, right? And they were like, hey, we can't figure out why we're throwing up or having, breakouts. And they're like, hey, take away dairy, take away meat for a minute, just eat vegetables for a week, and then start bringing that stuff back in. Guarantee you that's what he's going. He had taken, you guys have lived so clean for so long that he finally is like, wait a minute. Yeah. So what might have been just like, oh, I might have a small headache because I didn't have enough water, I didn't eat, was no, I was actually having a headache because I was reacting to the mold in my home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I blamed it on something else.
Yeah, for sure. Like I see it everywhere now, unfortunately. Kind of wish I was a little bit more oblivious sometimes. But like I'll go into like TJ Maxx and I'm like, it's all over the ceilings. And we're taking home the clothes from TJ Maxx. I'm seeing it in Target. I'm seeing it in everywhere I go. But like that's not gonna kill me. Like that's not gonna mess me up if I go in there for a couple hours. It's really more like really pay attention to where you're living, and working. It's another big one with the workspace, like schools. I'm seeing it with way too many of my clients that are coming from schools that are teachers. and we have our kids in these schools.
All I think about is the janitor and the janitor's closet and what was going on in there.
What?
Besides kissing toys. Clearly I was just looking in the janitor's closet, you guys. I wasn't doing anything in there. I was just checking it out. But like that dirty old mop. Why are you laughing at me? I was a teenage girl with big boobs, okay?
That's not what I was thinking about at all.
I know.
Mold. Now we're talking about.
I'm saying there was mold in the janitor's closet.
Okay.
And I was saying while I was in there investigating what was in there, what else was in there? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, got you. Now.
You know, like I'm thinking about that mop, that like raggedy old mop that they never changed out, and that water that just like was mushed all over the floors.
Yeah. Thanks for that picture.
We're basically instilling a ton of fear in people.
I'm sorry. I think about, and we talked about this earlier. When we say this stuff, like, look, okay, if it makes you fearful, I'm sorry, you're probably gonna have to log off. But I think it's so important to talk about it because you get interested. This is how you get down a rabbit hole. One episode, whether it's this episode with Sheeva, the metagenics episode, the episode where we were talking about circumcision, right? If there's something in one episode that makes you go, that's a rabbit hole for you to go down. And I don't think anybody should get scared. I'm not trying to be like a lover, but love safe mama. Like I'm not trying to say the whole world's out to get you. The whole world is out to get you. I hate to tell you that. Newsflash. There's a lot of things out there that your personal body cannot handle. And it's up to you to find and make those changes. And if you don't want to, don't. But this is where the information comes from.
Right. And also make sure that we're looking at pros and cons of certain things. Like for example, we're hearing a lot about, heavy metals in chocolate, for example. It's like, dude, I'm not going to stop eating chocolate because there's heavy metals. There's heavy metals in everything. It's one of those things in the functional medicine world that I'm like, okay, like let's see the level that we're really at with the heavy metals and really so there's certain things that you really do need to be like, all right, if I leave this environment and I'm no longer in mold, do like 20 of my symptoms improve? Okay, I need to look at this and see. It's all about testing, right? And making sure that you're testing what works best for you.
So speaking of testing, if someone is interested in finding more about themselves, let's talk about where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Sheeva Wellness on Instagram. I always answer my DMs as well. It might take me a minute, but I do answer them all. And then SheevaWellness.com, you can apply. I always start with an evaluation call that's super cheap, just so that you can, first of all, get some answers, right? I think there's such a power in taking away some of the anxiety around what might be going on, which is why I have these conversations, is I want you to feel more empowered in what you're needing and what your body is needing. And so I do give a lot of really great feedback, but then it also allows us to talk more about what your next steps are, because I don't want to blindly give you one panel that you like. I want to make sure that this is the labs that you might need for your specific body. And so we start with an evaluation call and then go from there.
That's amazing. Thank you, Sheeva. And thank you. For us, so again, what you just said was imperfect. We're not trying to fear monger anybody. We are trying to empower you. And there's a lot of questions in the world to ask. And so I hope this interview with Sheeva helped you start asking, what the health, That's a good tagline.
I like that.
Maybe that's the name of this episode. But everybody's health is so individual.
Yeah.
And if anything from this episode that you take, it's that there are a few things in your life that probably don't feel correct. And maybe someone like Sheeva is out there who can walk you through your lifestyle to make you feel better. And that's really where we're getting you at, is to empower you and to ask the questions and to find the right people to get you there. So until then, next time. Thanks, Sheeva.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Truth Moms. Remember, mamas, the truth starts at home.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps us reach more moms like you. And plus, it's free.
Until next time, stay strong, stay curious, and we will keep dropping those truth bombs. Bye.